me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Back in 2012, my family experienced a series of events that changed our lives forever. We moved into the main street house and only were able to live in it for about a year because of all of the paranormal activity. I've tried telling these stories many times before, but because it's 6 years of consistent hauntings, I find it really hard to find a way to categorize everything and keep the story flowing. Behind me is the list of just one section. This would be one house's experiences, and there's also pre-stories leading up to these events. This is part one and the events that led up to moving into the main street house. I do believe that my family had some sort of negative entity, possibly even a demonic entity attached to it, and be very possessive over it, because we had many years of hauntings in every house that we lived in. And by the fourth house, I realized it's not the house, it's us. Things just seemed to progress and spiral as we got older. As more negative came into our house, the stronger these presences got. We would always hear mimics. There was always like some sort of strange tragedy that nobody could explain. Around 2011, my ex-boyfriend's grandfather passed away. We went to his memorial a year later. All the aunts brought these really beautiful, fresh cut flowers. They like moved all the furniture out of the living room so the whole family can come. They have chairs set up with grandpa's picture in the front, and all these beautiful, fresh cut flowers. At the end of the prayer, there was a little flicker to the candles. Everybody got kind of cold, but it wasn't cold. It just had this chill feeling. And that's when we noticed that all of the vases were empty. The flowers were still inside, obviously, but the water was gone. So for all the water to be gone, I've never seen a vase empty. Of course, them being Hispanic, middle-aged, like Catholic women, stereotypically, I hate to use this kind of stuff, but they were like, no, like not in this house, not in El Rezo, like we're praying that this can't be, you know, because that would seem almost like dark energy. That would seem like a ghost presence, and anything paranormal to them is straight demonic. So it was kind of like, just put a little bit more water. Let's get a pitcher and fill the vases up. It was very ignored and shushed. So everyone kind of just sat back and was like, "Ee!" But it was definitely something that made you wonder. We live not too far from my ex-suegra's house. We drive home. It was very just intuitive feeling. We felt that something bad was going to happen. It was very cold. And when we lived in the hood, so you're kind of nervous anyways, get into pulling in, but we get home, we walk up the stairs, and it just felt very, very, I want to say clammy as we were unlocking the door to our apartment. And we have 2 little boys that we're carrying. It's late. As soon as we open the door, every single one of my toddler's toys goes off. All of the toys go off at the same exact time. Like 3-in-1 toy, that's going off. There's like a little ball that rolls around on the floor, that's going off. There's just so many little toys going off, and they're not connected. So it definitely was paranormal. There's no other reason for that. They're motion activated, but we weren't walking that heavy up the stairs. And this has never happened before. My ex, he's just like, oh, it's just abuelito. Just abuelito, hey, like quit fucking around kind of deal, and I'm like, yeah. We go to sleep, and I think about 20 minutes after laying in bed, I get a phone call that changed my life. It was my dad's ex-girlfriend. Her name's Karen. Karen was an avid user, and she is gone. She's out of her mind, and she's yelling, saying that my dad had passed away. And I'm like, holy crap, what happened? I have so many questions, and she can only offer a few answers. She lets me know that she thought he had a heart attack and possibly like a stroke or like seizures and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so freaking out, frantic, I'm crying. I'm like on the floor. Like I let out the most blood curdling cry that came from my uterus. I never knew it was possible for me to make a sound like that. I call my brother. He already knew. He'd already been drinking. So I'm like, why didn't you guys call me? Whatever, family drama, right? I gotta drop the kids off. Like, we gotta take the kids back up to my suegra's house. We need to get to the hospital. So that's what we did. And on the way to the hospital, I call Karen again, and I'm like, so what's going on? Like, what's happening? Like, where is he? Where are they taking him? Which hospital? Like, where do I need to go exactly? Because there's a few hospitals in the area. And she's like, oh, he's fine. He's good. Don't even worry about it. And I'm like, what the fuck? Karen, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, okay, is he still going to the hospital? Like, is he that good? And she's like, no, they're still going to take him to the hospital. She tells me the hospital name. She said, but he's fine. Don't worry about it. Like, I'm just going to get some coffee and walk over to the hospital. And I'm like, okay. So I call my brother and I'm like, yeah, so I guess he's fine. He's good now. And he's like, yeah, I'm still going to the hospital. I'm almost there. Like, I'll see you there. And I'm like, okay. My sister's coming. She lives about 2 hours away. She's on her way. Great. So we're all going to the hospital. When me and my brother get to the hospital around the same time, Karen walks in a few minutes after us. A nurse approaches us. She asks who we are. We tell her. She says, oh yeah, I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, he's here. They just brought him in on the back of the ambulance. Like, we're getting him like arranged. And I'm like, our loss? Like, I thought he was okay. She's like, yeah, he coded on the back of the ambulance. So he's gone now. And I'm like, what the fuck? So back to feeling heavy and like, like what the hell's going on? And then they tell us we can come back. My sister gets there at that point. We're waiting for way too long. But I guess, I mean, if he was already dead, right? Like, so they take us back and the doctor stops us before we go into this little sectioned off area. He's like, so I want to let you know that he is in a lot of pain and he's really groggy. And we're like, what the fuck? How is he in pain and groggy when he's dead? What do you mean? And the doctor's like, oh, nobody told you? And we're like, told us what? And they're like, after he got here, we were able to resuscitate him. He coded, but we got him. He's good. And we're like, okay, so what the fuck? Like, what? We're like looking at each other. My brother's laughing hysterically. Like, I think there was so much back and forth and he had been drinking heavily. So he's laughing so hard to where he's crying. And the doctor's looking at us like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, what the hell? Karen, she has no shoes and socks on. Like, homegirl walked a 10-minute walk to the hospital. She's like chill, drinking coffee. It just was very strange. Even my sister and me were like, oh, what the hell? Like, I'm trying to put my big girl pants on, but I kind of want to laugh. It just was bad. It was trauma responses, all of it. It was all bad. But this is where shit starts to get paranormal. You're probably wondering, like, why? How is this ghost related, right? Like, where does the ghost stuff come in? This is where the ghost stuff comes in. We got multiple entities surrounding us. My dad tells us that he didn't want to go back. So as he's laying down, and I hated this hospital. You know, they do that ghetto shit at County Hospital. He's in the middle of a freaking hallway, right? Like, and he had a heart attack, a stroke, and a brain aneurysm. So he's in a ton of pain, and they haven't given him medicine yet. So it's just all kind of, like, I feel so bad for him. So my dad's crying to us, telling us he didn't want to go back to hell. He's like, don't take me back to hell. Like, I don't want to go back. You guys cannot let me go back. Everybody needs to ask for forgiveness and pray now because hell is real. I think, knowing now what I know, I think he was in purgatory, kind of like in Beetlejuice, the waiting room. You know, they're all sitting there kind of waiting to be sent to where they need to go. And it's a bunch of like the wackies and, you know, the crusty people and whatever. It's kind of like where you're being judged. And I know that's where my dad went. I don't think he was in hell, but it scared him enough to make him want to change his life and do right. Because it seems about accurate to me. And I'll explain what... This is part 2 on my ghost story. I do believe that my family had a negative energy or even a demonic presence become obsessed with it. This is after a series of events that lasted over 6 years. Like, there's still currently stuff happening. Nothing has stopped, but the negative, heavy presence is no longer with us. Just a quick recap. In part 1, I mentioned my ex-boyfriend's grandfather passing away when we held the 1-year memorial. At the end of the prayer, the candles kind of like flickered. The room got pretty cold. All of the flower vases that were up in front of the room near his photograph, the water was gone. We don't know what happened to it. I did ask a florist in the comments of the first video, and I've asked several people in the past. No one can really explain how that would happen, but the florist here did say that that's usually something that happens with specific flowers overnight. So within just a couple of hours for the water to be gone, it was definitely something odd and possibly paranormal. When we went home that night, all of my son's electronic toys were going off at the same time. Like, when we opened the door, you can hear all the toys. We could see the lights going off, and we just kind of laughed it off. That same exact night, I get a phone call from my dad's ex-girlfriend. She was the current girlfriend at the time, telling me that my dad had passed away. My dad passed away or flatlined, coded 3 times that night, and each time he was able to be brought back. When he was able to talk to us before getting transferred to another hospital, he told us that he didn't want to go back to hell. I'm thinking of just having him. I don't know if he will or not, but I want to ask him if he can just do a video telling us what he saw. I know what he saw. It's something that I can only explain in his words. But I think it would be that much better if we were able to get him on to tell us. And he's camera shy, but I'm going to ask him because his story of what he saw and the emotion that he felt when he was there, the place he went to, it changed his life. He said there was light at the end of the tunnel though, but what he had seen while walking through the tunnel or being pulled through the tunnel is what made him change his life. My dad was in a coma for about 3 months. We didn't know the severity or the long-term effects of his injuries. We knew that he was going to need care for quite some time until he was able to care for himself. His girlfriend worked. I was a stay-at-home mom, and she had made some suggestions about me possibly being his full-time caregiver. Her name was Karen. Karen was a user. She was also pretty witty, nutty, very earthy, and a self-proclaimed white witch. I visited my dad as much as possible, and I had seen him start to come up out of the coma and show a little bit more of his character. He was starting to become more of himself. The nurses did tell us that due to the medication he was on, he was going to possibly be hallucinating for a while. So when he starts telling us about the male nurse, this man that he wanted to see so badly, I thought he was hallucinating. I know now that he was not hallucinating. He said that this male nurse was visiting him the entire time he was in the coma, and he's the only person he could hear while he was in the coma. A lot of people mention that when they're in a coma, they have dreams. So this male nurse, was visiting my dad in his dreams, but he could also hear him in the real world, but he was unable to react. He said that this man had healing hands. He told me that the man was shorter than me. I am 4 feet 11 and a half. He said that he was inches shorter than me, so this was a little guy. He also said that this man was pure white, but he could see like an olive tone that was just inside of him. He said that he wore all white and he had long, white, blown out hair. He said that this man would come and hold his hands and talk to my dad and pray over him. It got so intense at one point that a nurse pulled me outside of the room and she said, you know, this nurse doesn't work here, but we know who he's talking about. She told me that many of the patients who were in the ICU or like hospice, leaving for hospice, told them that they had all seen the same man who had the same resemblance. Short, white clothes. My dad said that the man resembled the Colonel from KFC. A few months later, I was talking with my friend whose aunt was also a patient in this hospital. She passed away due to cancer. I brought up the glowing nurse and she just about broke down and cried and had to leave the room to call her mom because before her aunt passed away, that's the only person the aunt could talk about. We're told my dad is going to be able to come home in a few days. Me and Karen are visiting him, and Karen tells us that the night before she went to a bar. Karen was very well known. She was very social. She was super fluid. She said that this man that she had never seen, but said that he was from the same town, had a house for her. She said that she was just sitting at the bar by herself, and he came up and whispered right into her ear and said, "I have the perfect house for you." He sat down next to her and they had an entire conversation about the house, and that's when she told him a little bit about our situation. Because she was very big on numerology and spirituality, she thought that this was a sign. She said that she knew that this house was for us and it was meant to be and it was calling us. She said it was the best situation. We would be able to move into that house rent-free and I would be able to care for my dad. I agreed, but I needed to make sure I saw the house first. Eerily enough, it's Halloween day when I get the okay to go view the house. Me and my brother go to check out the house, and for whatever reason, as we're driving down this main road before getting to Main Street, I tell my brother to turn right, and that right-hand turn takes us to an abandoned cemetery. I became infatuated with this cemetery for months. I always wanted to go to the cemetery. I felt at home at the cemetery. That was the only place I felt safe. We go and do a little tour of the house, and I just have to mention this because it's so strange. So there's 2 rooms across from each other and 1 room in the middle. There's no light in that hallway unless that middle room, which was a small closet with a huge window, unless that door is open. But when we were walking up that hallway, we noticed 2 little crawl spaces. They're on both sides of the staircase, and you can fit your body inside. So we unlatch the doors. My brother crawls in. These little rooms were so dark, but they did wrap around to the front of the house. So at some point there was like walls missing or like a hollow space in front of the house. The house started to get built in the late 1800s, and I think by 1915 it was complete. There were add-ons to the house. Maybe every 50 years or so they would add a new hallway, new bedrooms, a sunroom in the back. So the house was kind of like a time capsule. There was a historic placard that was built into the front of the house that kind of gave some details on the family. The family who built the house and their offspring were the only ones who had ever lived in this house. We were going to be the first outsiders to move in. My brother wraps around the crawl space and comes out. We finish off searching through the house. That's when we notice that in the sunroom, there's an extra little entrance, and it's almost as if they had removed the big doors to a cellar. They don't really have those in California, but I've seen them in other states. They're like bunkers. The doors open up out of the ground like a fallout shelter or something. I don't know. They decided to remove those and just build onto it, so it was connected into the room. You could just walk down a staircase, and the entire staircase was carved out of mud and rock. There were some support beams, but majority of it was just built out of rock that was probably natural. I'm pretty sure that this rock was limestone. As we got closer to the floor, we noticed we could hear some talking. There was female and male voices. It just seemed like people were having a very calm conversation. The talking stops, and as we look down into the room, we notice a chair set up with the TV. The TV's on, but there's only static on the screen. We thought we entered somebody else's house. We didn't know much about this room or the house yet, so we ran up the stairs. We went out, and I called Karen to let her know the house was perfect for us. So it's Halloween day, and we're set to move in to this historic home. I'm gonna run out of time, so I'm gonna go ahead and post a part 3 right now, just so if you're into it, you can go and hear it. Part 3. It's Halloween day, and we're set to move into this historic home. I go back to the house with my boyfriend, my ex-boyfriend, and his family, so we can kind of do a quick pickup and also drop off small things. We all kind of spread out throughout the house and start dusting, vacuuming the carpets, wiping windowsills. There were teeth that were huge with roots. There were baby teeth. There were capped teeth, like gold teeth, all kinds of teeth. It seemed almost like we all walked out of the rooms we were cleaning at the same time with a bunch of teeth in our hands. We think it's weird, but we're trying to remain optimistic and not think too much into it, so we all place the teeth into a little drawer on a built-in china cabinet. We continue cleaning the house. My ex-boyfriend's parents keep telling us that the house is scary and that it feels weird. I felt the same exact way, but I just smiled and laughed it off, like there's nothing wrong. The house is beautiful. We left the house for a little while, and when we returned, we noticed that the teeth were gone. They were nowhere to be found, and nobody had been to the house. Everybody went outside to start getting big furniture. I stayed inside with my 2 young boys. I was getting them set up to watch TV so we could start doing the heavy lifting, when I noticed the windowsill looked a little different, and I was kind of worried that maybe some of the cleaning products we used weren't good on this natural wood. I rush over to go and wipe it off when I noticed that there was fresh carving in the windowsill. The carving said, "We will find you." And as I read this, I could feel a really dark presence come over me. I started to feel physically drained and ill. I didn't want to see that, so I rushed over to my bag. I grabbed a pin. I went back to the window and I scraped right into the wood. I didn't care about damaging the wood. I scraped it out of the wood. I grabbed both of the kids. We went back outside. I was feeling really scared, but I didn't want to show anybody that I was scared. I was trying to just ignore it. We kind of talked a little bit before grabbing some heavy furniture. The guys grabbed, our beds and stuff and started making their way back up the stairs. I specifically remember turning the TV off before leaving the room and going outside with the kids. When we walked back inside of the house, the TV was on with static on the screen, full blast, and there were 2 built-in study tables inside of that living room on both sides of the fireplace. There were cabinets that were open, like the built-in desks were opened. The drawers that we placed the teeth in, along with the china cabinet that was built in, all the cabinets, the doors, the drawers were all opened. Me and my kids' grandma just start closing everything, and I notice on the 2 drawers, there was fresh carvings in the wood. There were still shards of wood where it had been carved out. The cabinet on the left side said the same thing as the first, "We will find you." The second cabinet said, "We will take you." I didn't tell anybody that I had read that. I just closed the cabinets, and I felt sick to my stomach because I figured this is not a real person. There's no physical person here. This is something we can't see. So it can't be that big of a deal, right? There's a few days before my dad gets out of the hospital, so we're just living in this house. We're just living in it. The house felt very cold. It felt very uncomfortable. It felt very just high-pitched. I can't really explain it, but the house almost felt like there was a power cord running through it. There was a doorbell. I don't know anything about doorbells, but the doorbell it seemed almost like it would have been original to the house. It was probably one of the first doorbells ever made. It would short out sometimes. Like, you could sometimes hear it when you push the button, other times you couldn't hear it. So we just figured we wouldn't use the doorbell. There was also like a little box for the sound, probably run through to the back side of the house. So that's where you were able to hear the doorbell the loudest from, the kitchen and like towards the back side of the house. The doorbell seemed to make different sounds. Sometimes it would sound like a buzzer, and other times it would sound like a chime. It was very strange. There was also one of those old phones built into the wall, the kind that you would have to like talk into that little speaker and hold the thing to your ear. That didn't have any power to it. We tried to play with it way too much. It didn't work, but we could still hear the phone ringing sometimes. And we couldn't pinpoint where the ringing was coming from. Sometimes it sounded like it was up above the phone, and other times it sounded like it spread throughout the floor. And you could hear it while you were in the shower. You could hear it when you were in the back sunroom. The phone just rang deep inside of the house. We decided to move in my ex-boyfriend's cousin. So he moved in to the upstairs room across from the master room. I completely forgot to mention, those two little boxes, those little cutouts, the crawl spaces along the staircase, they never existed. They weren't there. The night we moved into the house, they weren't there. They weren't there. Everybody thought that I was crazy because when I told them how many bedrooms and bathrooms the house had, there was an extra bathroom. And it was in place of the crawl space to the right. And it seemed so strange because there were stairs leading up to where it had like a flat, like the landing of the stairs. You'd think that the bathroom would be right at the top of the landing, but no, the bathroom sat off the stairs. So to get into the bathroom, you had to lean and kind of like wing yourself around the corner into the doorway. The bathroom made no sense. It was not there the day me and my brother went to view the house. The bathroom was not there. There were two crawl spaces on both sides of the staircase. Those were gone. They weren't filled in. There was no cutouts in the wall. Everything was still original. And this old bathroom that was filled with green tile was in place of the crawl spaces. The very first night that my ex-boyfriend's cousin moved in with us, his bedroom was next to the bathroom that appeared out of nowhere. He said that he started to feel fluish. He said that he sat up in bed and there was a little boy at his feet. He thought that it was one of my sons. He knew it wasn't, but he was trying to tell himself that it was one of my sons and not to worry. He said that the little boy walked out of the bedroom and went out towards the staircase. That little boy became a frequent apparition that we all saw in the house. It took me some time to see him. My dad came home from the hospital. That was also the first apparition he said he saw. He said that one day he was glancing out of the bedroom and he could see the little boy just flash past from the hall closet at the end of the staircase there towards the staircase. He too comforted himself by saying that it was one of my sons. In my son's room, there was a door that would have went to like the underneath of the staircase, just one of those little doors under the staircase. That little closet down there made me so uncomfortable that I had to push a tall boy dresser up against it. I didn't want anything to do with that door. I hated it. It made me extremely uncomfortable. That door almost made me not want my kids to be inside of that room. And I thought that I was doing too much. When it comes to ghosts and paranormal stuff like this, the non-believers don't want to hear about it. They don't want to talk about it. And if you do talk about it, you seem kind of crazy. I didn't want to seem crazy. The house felt pretty comfortable for a while. So my dad's in the house. Karen's coming to visit. The kids are in school. Things are starting to have a flow to them. And then one morning, Karen tells us that there's a man in the house. She tells us that he has to be 6'5", 400 pounds. He wears a plaid shirt and overalls. She said that he's been following her around since she came to the house for the first time, but she didn't want to say anything. She told us that it was so bad to where she didn't feel comfortable going to the house anymore, so she packed her stuff. She packed the things that she brought to the house with her and took it back down to her loft, which was just a few blocks down from the house. She tells us the first time she saw the man, he was leading out of the bathroom door when she was at the bottom of the staircase. She said that when he looked at her and they locked eyes for a second, she not only felt him, but she could think she had seen memories that this man had. She said that he was extremely heavy. There was so much pain and torture in him to where she was choking on him. I'm going to have to continue the story because I'm running out of time.